Welcome to the Book Binge. I'm your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and while I may have forgotten to wear my Santa hat for the Wheel of Time diaries that are coming out this month, I'm not forgetting for the rest of the videos that come out this month because it is December. And because it's December and the first Tuesday of the month, just like normal, we're going to be talking about my reading wrap up and TBR, everything that I read last month in November, which, spoiler alert, wasn't that much, and everything that I plan to read in December, which, spoiler alert, is a little bit more than I think I'll actually be able to get to, but we'll talk about all of that in due time. November was certainly another mess, not least because of the last week where I've had a pretty abysmal cold. Like, I've been pretty heavily affected by, at this point I think it was probably more than a cold, but I do not care to find out anymore. So if there's any extra random cuts, it's probably because I'm coughing or freeing up some gunk and stuff in my nasal cavity, because it has been an absolute mess, that is for sure. Anyway, just as the case has been for much of the year up to this point, I haven't had a whole ton of time to read because of various different things going on in November, but I did get a little bit more done in November than I did in October, and like I said, I have a little bit more planned in December than I think I've had for any other month in a hot minute at this point, which is probably very foolish of me. But whether it's foolish or not is too late for me to make that determination now. Let's begin with what I read in November 2025. And the first thing that I will say I got through was I read the vast majority of, and actually completed, Immoral and Malevolent Happenings by Alex Anglis, which is a book that Alex Anglis, the primary songwriter, the vocalist, guitarist for Before I Turn, a metalcore band, has written to pair with an upcoming album that he's releasing for the band in like around February or so. We'll see if the book is able to actually get through all the post-production steps and be published around the same time, but it is a book that I did edit for him, and so I finished reading that in November, got the bulk of the edit done in early November, if I'm not mistaken, just before I went to a Shadows Upon Time release event halfway through the month. So that was the first thing that I got read. And then the other thing that I got read was, again, the bulk of Knife of Dreams by Robert Jordan, where I read, I don't know how much of this I actually read in October. I think I might have read, like, the prologue and the first couple chapters. That might have been it. So, like, maybe a sixth of the book max. The rest of the book I did read in November. And just before I start talking about this too much more, I will jump this into the book of the month section, because Knife of Dreams was my book of the month for November. That was all that I got read, was those two books, so not a whole lot of competition there, but the back half of Knife of Dreams definitely made it worthy of being the book of the month, where, you know, I probably have a little bit of a hot take where I'm not sure this is quite the return to form, quote unquote, that people advertise it as. I don't think it's quite as good as people make it out to be. It's mostly just really exciting that the back half of this book in particular actually closes off a bunch of storylines that have been open for 5 books in the series at this point, that definitely should not have taken that long in basically any of their cases. So it's just like finally taking a massive step forward within the plotting of the Wheel of Time that most of the last few books have not taken basically at all, and to finally see that happen in Knife of Dreams was admittedly pretty exciting, and a lot of those climactic sequences were actually pretty good, you know, up there as some of the better climactic sequences that Robert Jordan has written, since he can be pretty hit or miss as far as those are concerned in my eyes. Definitely the best book in the series since A Crown of Swords. It's probably right there in the ranking with Crown of Swords for me, where the difference between them mostly comes down to whether you appreciate climaxes more or build-ups more. And if you appreciate a little bit more of a build-up, and even not even a build-up, Crown of Swords is mostly just reacting to the end of book 6, and so if that's something that you really enjoy, that book's great for that. But because Knife of Dreams, the back half of it, does finally wrap up a lot of these plot lines, even if, you know, I was starting to get a little bit salty and wary of a lot of those plot lines in the first place, the fact that it does do that is really great for the book itself and made everything all worth it. So yeah, that's how I feel about Knife of Dreams in a very short context. Let's talk about what I plan to read in December, but probably I'm not going to get through all of this. Like, almost certainly I'm not going to get through all of this, but we shall see. It's not even like I have that many books planned. It's just that one of them is a little bit bigger, and I'm going to be gone for a little bit more time. Part of the reason why I didn't get a ton read in November was because I was gone for about a week of time in the middle of the month. I took a trip to Raleigh, North Carolina to attend the release gala for Shadows Upon Time, the last book in the Sun Eater, and I did not read a word for about a week or so over the course of that trip, and the day like before and after. I just did not read anything, and at the time of this video's release, on Tuesday, December 2nd, tomorrow, and maybe even today, depending on weather, I'm going to be going to Salt Lake City and going to be working Christopher Rocchio's booth at Dragonsteel Nexus, so I'm going to be down there for a handful of days, and probably I won't get very much read in the meantime here. And then immediately after the convention is over on Sunday, December 7th, I'm going to be hopping on a plane and going to New Jersey for a week, and we'll see how much reading I get done while I'm in New Jersey. I'm anticipating none, so that if I get any done, it'll be a win. But because of that, like at least a week and a half of this month as well, I'm anticipating getting very little to no reading done. So, like I said, probably not going to be that much that I get done in December, but let's finally talk about what I do plan to get done anyway. At the time of recording this video, it is only November 29th, even though the video comes out on December 2nd. I'm hoping that with the brevity of this book, with how short it is, and with how quickly I was able to read the first book, its predecessor, Rose of Jericho by Alex Grecian, I do finally plan to get back around to in December. Red Rabbit by the same author, because it was the book that preceded this one. I didn't even realize Rose of Jericho was a sequel until basically right as soon as it released, interestingly enough. But Red Rabbit earlier this year is one of my favorite books of 2025 that I've read in general. And Rose of Jericho I've been meaning to get to, that I've been trying to read ever since it released back in March. That goes to show just how chaotic and just unhinged my reading year has been this year, just how utterly not fantastic it has went, generally speaking. But Rose of Jericho I do plan to read in December, and mostly I just plan to read this in the next 3-4 days before I go over to Salt Lake City, because it's so short. I think I might be able to squeeze out most of it in that time. So that's the goal, is to get this done before the trip even happens, so that I can at least have this done. That is the goal. The next thing that I do plan to read in December is something that I don't plan to get to until after the trip, basically, and that is The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas, which is a book that I had probably planned for 1.5 million years ago. In fact, I remember including this book in my thumbnail for a reading wrap-up and TBR video at some point where I just forgot to even mention it, or did not bother to even mention it in the actual video itself, because I made the thumbnail like 2 or 3 weeks before recording the video, and by the time I recorded the video, I knew I wasn't going to be reading it anymore. I think that was all the way back in like April or May when I had originally planned to get The Three Musketeers read this year. It was a while ago, and now I do finally actually plan to get back around to it and get it done. And because I don't plan to actually read any Three Musketeers until after I'm back from the trip, I'm anticipating that with its length, it's only like 700 pages or something like that, less than 700 pages. So it's not as long as Count of Monte Cristo, but if it reads as fast as Count of Monte Cristo did, I could have this done in a couple weeks and hopefully have it done by the end of the month. So that's the goal, that's the hope, that's what I plan to do. And so yeah, that's what my TBR looks like for basically the confirmed stuff, for the confirmed books. If I happen to get through a little bit more, if everything goes really well with these 2 books, which, mind you, it might not. It could very well not go well at all. But I do plan to read a King book this year, a Stephen King book, in December. And so, depending on how much time I have after Three Musketeers, assuming it goes well, assuming it goes smooth, and assuming it goes quickly, I could read either Firestarter or Cujo this year. Whichever one is shorter. Cujo is definitely a good bit shorter than Firestarter is. It's like 400 pages as opposed to 500. So, and Stephen King reads quickly, so this is part of the reason why I kind of plan for this to be like the fill-in book at the end of the month. If I have time, I'll read one of these books and I'll make the determination of which one of these two it is when and if I have time to do so at the end of the month, and that's basically what I've got going on. For regular books, that is all that I have planned for this month. But I should note that I do plan to start another manga series this month, kind of like I started Monster in December last year and read that up through the beginning of February in 2025. I plan to start The Girl from the Other Side. This little set of beautiful deluxe editions here. I plan to start this as something to read this month a little bit on the side, just like a chapter or two here and there, especially like at night before I go to bed. That's something that I did with Monster and it ended up working out very well. And this is part of what I plan to offset that week and a half worth of time where I probably won't be doing any actual reading, is because I'm going to be taking a couple of these volumes with me on my trip to probably read a couple chapters now and again from Girl from the Other Side for that week and a half, so that I can still have some reading done, still get a little bit of something accomplished, feel a little bit better about myself after the reading year that I've had, without having to worry so much about whether I have enough brain power for reading a whole ass book or something like that in the meantime. So that is what I've got planned for December. I don't anticipate having any other time outside of these books, and quite frankly, even giving this much of TBR for December, given that I'm not going to be around for a week and a half, is a little bit ballsy of me, but that's what I've got going on, and I appreciate you for checking out this video if you did. If you were curious about some of what I have planned to read in 2026, some of my general TBR for next year, assuming all goes well, because if it goes like 2025, that video is going to be irrelevant within a couple of months. That's basically what happened this year. But I do have, in a couple of weeks' time here, I'm going to be doing a general TBR video for 2026, where I talk about some of the main things that I do plan to read in 2026, plus some of the other stuff I'd like to get done, depending on how well everything else goes. For now, I'm mostly just looking forward to, you know, relatively chilling out a little bit in December, and just getting through what I can get through, and hoping that 2026 goes a little bit better for my reading. But in the meantime, I do have December to get through, so let's see how that goes. Thank you for watching this video. If you did, let me know what reading plans you have for the month. I'd be curious to hear. But for now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.